All right, welcome to Retro Game Club episode 25. I am Rob, and with me is Hugh, another person that Atari hasn't paid in 6 months.
That's true. They owe me a lot.
What have you been up to?
Let's see. I just got back from a little trip up to northern Wisconsin because I usually do that in fall to go up and see like beautiful fall scenery and that stuff. But unfortunately, I saw beautiful fall snow instead. Decent enough trip though. I mean, I had a good time. What I did find in Wisconsin was a GameStop in far northern Wisconsin that still sells Dreamcast games.
Wow. So what did you pick up there for
So I picked up Quake 3 Arena for $5.99.
You were talking about
I realized
that.
I realized it doesn't really have like much of an offline mode. But I have a bootleg copy of this game that I got at a yard sale. And now I have a real copy. And I was talking to the clerk there about like, okay, so why is it you have Dreamcast? And they also had PlayStation games there too.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, oh, well, we do this thing where people can trade in retro games. And we're supposed to send them to like a central warehouse, which then sells them online. But he said something effective like they're allowed to sell them in the store for up to 30 days first. And then if they don't sell, they have to send them. Like they have to send them after 30 days.
And
he said, like, it was his understanding that no stores ever do that. They just all send them back. But up where they are, for whatever reason, the old games sell, moderately well.
Interesting.
I'm guessing, like, in a small town, there might be, like, one or two, like, hardcore game collectors who, like, go to Goodwill every day and they don't really have a lot of competition because it's the middle of nowhere.
Yeah, yeah.
You just be, like, that one guy collecting games. So maybe they already had Quake 3 Arena, or I got there first. They also, like I said, they had, like, 3 or 4 PlayStation games, but there's, like, Siphon Filter and stuff I either already have or didn't really care about.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But that was pretty cool just to see far north woods.
And our listeners can take a drink because we already talked about being in the Midwest.
Midwest, yeah. Yeah, this is actually, I wasn't too far from UP, really, to give you an idea.
Mm-hmm.
But I got out there today because there's like a Packers game tonight, which means it's going to be completely unsafe to drive on the roads there.
Yeah, yeah.
I hate to stereotype, but unfortunately, it's like really true. Like most of the town shuts down and people just drink and watch Packers whenever the Packers play.
Mm-hmm.
So I usually I'm really bad at like promoting projects that I work on. I don't know why it is. Like if you work in an office where you have to do like an annual self-review, mine are always really underwhelming. I show up every day and sometimes I have coffee. That's kind of the gist of my review. And but I'm doing a limited run podcast. It's gonna be like 6 or 7 episodes total. I actually lost track of how many it's gonna be. And it's called Dumbest Games to Collect. And I'm going to put a link in the show notes, and you can go download the first episode, which is about Atari landfill games. And this podcast we keep PG. That one is not PG. So if you listen to podcasts with like your 5-year-old in the car, you might not want to listen to that one in the car with the 5-year-old. But otherwise, it's kind of a funny topic. And we look at, a few different games that are kind of considered like holy grails of collectors, and then explain why we think it's not a good idea to collect them. Sometimes because the games are actually much more common than people think, or other times they just seem kind of odd and pointless to collect. But you'll see as the series evolves some of the odd games that we talk about.
Yeah, I listened to episode 1. It was really funny and really well edited too.
Yeah, I can't take credit for that. I just showed up and did some recordings. What about you? What have you been up to?
Yeah, so I finished Link's Remakening. I don't think I came up with that pun. But I liked it. I think I realized I actually never played Link's Awakening.
Okay.
If I did, I didn't remember any of it. So it was really like having a brand new Zelda game. I liked it. I don't know if it was worth the price. I liked how they kept it retroly hard. They don't really give you a lot of direct hints and help. Mm-hmm. And the soundtrack was just incredible. And did you beat that one yet?
The which one?
The Link's...
I finished the game. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I thought you were asking if I
new
beat-
one.
I'm sorry. I'm like, yeah, I thought I did. I definitely beat it. I can't remember if I beat it last time we recorded or
I
not.
think you
That's
were
what I was gonna
almost
tell
done
you.
last time.
Yeah, I did finish it. And, like, I thought overall the game was pretty easy until you get to, like, the last 2 dungeons.
Yeah, that last one was rough, but I really enjoyed that one. How just a really well put together puzzle. But man,
Yeah.
the end credit soundtrack, how they go back into the original music with the original sounds and they bring it back into the live, quote unquote live. It's probably not symphony. They just knocked it out of the park with that soundtrack. I had no jitter at all though, the whole game. Not even once.
Yeah, like I said, I only started to become sensitive to it, when I saw more and more articles. And again, I really think it was only once or twice I experienced something. So, like, even the parts where you're running around and there's, like, boulders falling, I didn't see anything. So, I don't know. Did you try the build your own dungeon mode very much?
No. And it's weird. Like, I mean, you have to once, right? You have to do the tutorial. It's part of the game. I think you have to. I could be wrong, but
I don't think you have to. I think it's a good idea, but I don't think you have to.
I don't know if you ever get this. It's a reason why I don't play Mario Maker is I have programming projects I want to get done, personal ones. And every time I start into a video game where you're creating stuff, I feel like I could just be creating my own game,
Mm-hmm.
So that's my reasoning for that. And then I've been looking for another game to play because of that, because of beating it. So I started Mega Man 11. It didn't really capture me. I'll probably get back to it one day. I'm not sure if I like any Mega Mans after Mega Man 3. To tell you the truth, I might be retired from new Mega Mans.
Okay.
And I also downloaded Namco's Arcade for Switch. There was a great deal this week. And it's 1.3 gigs.
Oh, that's right. I was going to download that because I just saw it's like half price until the 20th or something, right?
Yeah, 1.3 gigs. So,
yeah. I'm sorry, I jumped past the 1.3 because at this point it's like, I get it. It's 128K of games total.
Maybe 500 meg for Unreal Engine or whatever they use, but 1.3 gigs. What is going on? So I'll report back on that. I went to Randy from our last episode. He opened his toy store, and I went in for the soft opening. And I picked up this little Luigi guy. I don't know if you could see that.
Mm-hmm.
He's like Luigi on a cloud.
Is that a Happy Meal? Is that like a Happy Meal toy?
It's gotta be.
I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, I have a bunch of like Burger King and I think Wendy's Nintendo Happy Meal toys, and that looks just like. I don't have that Luigi, but I have other ones that look remarkably like it.
Yeah, he had a ton in the dollar bin, and Avoid the Noid. Did you get those in Chicago?
We may have, but
okay. It's Domino's Pizza.
I did not collect. Yeah, I did not collect the Noid.
And I got this big Mega Man guy. I'd never seen it before. It's the deluxe figure from Jack's. But then I looked on Amazon and it's all over the place. But, it's really good condition, so I'm happy with it. Beautiful store. And then he also had, when I got there, he had just found that he had an Atari 2600 Empire Strikes Back sealed. And I thought about maybe picking that up, but I have like 2 unsealed copies and 1 complete in box, so I don't need a game I'm never going to open, I guess. But I was really impressed he had that. And then that got me thinking about Atari VCS, which we'll be talking about later. But I emailed them and they actually responded. And I don't know if you know this, but there's 2 versions, and I'm talking about the fake Atari that'll never be released.
I think there's some drama about that we may be discussing later.
Yes. But I emailed them saying I'm a backer, and you guys never said, you have 2 different versions, the 4 gig version and the 8 gig version, gigabytes of RAM. And they said that all backers will get it's called the 800 model, so I guess they got creative. There's the 400 and the 800. Mm-hmm. I guess all backers are supposed to get the 800 model. So, At least they responded. I appreciated that. But yeah, that's about all I got.
All right.
Shall we dive in?
Yeah, why don't we do that? There's I think we haven't recorded for about like 10 days or something, and there's a pretty good backlog of news and stuff. Although some of them are, yeah, we'll see how long they all take. A port of Another World coming to the Commodore 64. Is that the first item here?
That's the second item, but now it's the first.
Oh, it's the first. Oh, I see. It looked like one really long line in the show notes. Aha, that's the problem with I don't hit the enter key. Okay.
So, Another World. Have you played that one?
Oh yeah, everyone's played it. No, I don't know if anyone's ever gotten past the first level, but I've definitely played it.
Yeah. So apparently, this guy in this article is porting it to the C64, which seems like a pretty big undertaking.
It would be, yeah. I mean, you'd have to shrink it quite a bit. Now, it has like its own custom runtime, and that's the thing is like the reason this is imported to a lot of systems is because the developer basically wrote a runtime environment for that game, and then there's like data file stuff. So you actually just sort of, I mean, I'd say just, but you're not basically taking like assembler code, with all the game logic and trying to port it to something else. You're instead trying to port this like intermediate runtime that he created.
And I mean, so even on the more heavy systems like Amiga and stuff, it was pretty impressive.
Yeah, and the Super Nintendo port was pretty impressive too. And then there's a Sega CD port and a sequel on Sega CD that I think is like a Metal Gear 2 style sequel in that the original developer was not involved.
Okay. All right.
And it ends kind of weird. Have you ever just watched a playthrough of the sequel to Another World?
No, I don't even know if I knew there was a sequel.
Yeah. I mean, it kind of wrecks the ending and story of the first game, I guess.
Great.
All right, so let's go to what the first article was going to be. Commodore 64, the most popular computer of all time. I think this needs a question mark.
Well, now it's the third most popular computer, but this is on Adafruit, and it's just a great many page write-up on the history of the 64, the current ways to emulate it. They really get in depth with it. Some C64 basic, if you want to learn that, it's a really nice, really short tutorial, and a lot of modern mods you could do, like FPGA stuff and yada yada yada. And then just many links of resources. So if there's anyone that wants to get into the C64 out there, or anyone who loves C64, you should definitely check this out in our show notes.
And then kind of bring down news. Mario and Luigi developer Alpha Dream has gone bankrupt.
Yeah.
So combination of high development costs and I guess low revenue. So I don't know what else they worked on other than the Mario and Luigi series, which are fun. And they really are fun games.
I feel like they sold well too, but I guess it's been a while since they've made one that I've heard of.
Well, the last one they made was Bowser's Inside Story. And yeah, that was a late 3DS release. I don't think, well, it still came out before the Switch. Like I could see if you spend a lot of time building a game and then the Switch comes out and suddenly you have no way to sell it. But that's not quite what happened here. It was just kind of late in the 3DS life cycle.
Yeah. They had almost 4 million in debt, which doesn't seem like a lot, in terms of how much game companies spend now,
Yeah, but without anything out right now, like I don't know what their arrangement was with Nintendo. Like the thing is, they don't own any IP, obviously, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard for them if they aren't getting new money in from Nintendo to develop games, then and that's all they do is this kind of work. I haven't really ever looked at like their full list of games, but
hopefully their developers just get scooped up by other nice game companies.
Yeah, I assume that they will. And I guess yeah, that's one they really, since basically 2009, all they've really done is Mario and Luigi games. And they've done a couple other games that I'm not familiar with, but they all look like things that were probably licensed from Nintendo.
Yeah. And
They've got a lot of games that I don't know what they are.
the 3DS doesn't seem easy to code for too. So, and all those are really good games. So they seem like really good, talented developers. I'm sure they'll land on their feet. I'm sure this wasn't a surprise coming. World's rarest console, the Nintendo PlayStation, is up for sale. This guy's about to be rich.
Probably, yeah. I mean, it is a real system. It does actually turn on. I believe you can play cartridge games on it. At gaming conventions, you could get yourself, you could take a photo with it for a few dollars, I guess. I have gotten photos of this system, but I did not pay for the, take a picture of yourself holding it.
That's so strange, but yeah.
Well, yeah, right. How's it any different, though, than paying for, a photo with a celebrity, I guess, other than this is a inanimate object.
Yeah. The good thing about this article is he's looking for a museum to take it. He doesn't want someone who's gonna just put it in their private collection and do nothing with it, just hide it or hoard it. So so that's good.
Yeah, that's not how it's going to end. I mean, it's going to be some lottery winner, or I don't know. Have Saudi princes learned about game collecting yet?
I hope not. We don't have many.
Once they do, once they do,
it's
over, right?
Yeah. But it'll be interesting to see what happens with that.
Right. Oh, this is really, I just missed this article. This is also really bummer news. Bully 2 is not going to happen.
Yeah, did you know they were developing it?
I heard a rumor a while ago that there was some kind of development towards a Bully 2.
Apparently, yeah. So a lot of developers were working on it for 18 months. A lot of them had to be let go. So on their resume, it says unreleased Rockstar game. But apparently it was on the same engine as Grand Theft Auto 5, which means, it's probably a gigantic open world game. The one little slice of the game they got done was apparently you were living at your stepdad's house and you're trying to go away to college or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, the problem is I don't think you could do it. I think you need to do it GTA style. I don't think you can do a direct sequel to that game. I think you would redo it in a new setting.
Mm-hmm.
And whether that would be modern day, I know it's hard to do because there's all sorts of terrible things kids at school have to be terrified of today. That we didn't have to. Or go back to the 70s or 80s, or go back to a different time period, like they did with Vice City, right? Mm-hmm. So Grand Theft Auto 3 was set in modern day 2000 or whatever. In Grand Theft Auto Vice City, then they went back to the 80s. You could do something like that with Bully as well.
Yeah.
Part of it is Bully, the teachers are also horrible human beings. So it's harder to set it today because now, with social media and helicopter parents, horrible teachers tend to get kind of forced out. It's not. I know. Like I said, two things are very negative: social media and helicopter parenting. They're both bad things, but occasionally good things can come above it. Hey, this school has a teacher that's really horrible, and although it also gets used to bully teachers that aren't actually horrible. I've unfortunately seen that as well.
I wonder if this would have had an online mode like Grand Theft Auto 5.
It could have, yeah. I mean, the school's a good setting for that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, people online are horrible, so that may have been a bad idea.
This is why I'm not going to play Quake 3 Arena online. Also,
exactly. Well, that one might be different because anyone who's still playing Quake 3 Arena on a Dreamcast might be kind of cool.
Yeah, chances are they're cool, I suppose.
New cool Star Wars and Rage 2 mod for Doom and GZ Doom.
Mm-hmm. So it lets you play something that's very similar to, it's like more of like a conversion of Dark Forces to Doom. I don't think you're actually playing Dark Forces data files. I think it's making Doom sort of run like Dark Forces.
Yeah, and it's heavily modified. Like you get a lightsaber and you're actually deflecting laser bolts and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm looking at the little teaser video. It's pretty nice looking. I like how it jumps like between Dark Forces environments and Doom environments in the same level.
Yeah, I know. I didn't watch the Rage one because I don't really know what that is, unfortunately. I mean, I've heard of it, but I've never played it.
I haven't played it, so I can't tell you if this is accurate or not.
Install NES emulators and alternative iOS apps with the Alt Store. So if you want to probably brick your iPhone, you can install NES, NES, N64, Game Boy Advance, and other emulators.
Now, you don't have to jailbreak your phone to use Alt Store, I thought. Because I thought this was part of the whole like Apple antitrust situation, right? Where they weren't allowed to have a monopoly on the store for their devices anymore.
I think you have to install it with a USB cable on your Mac.
Okay, welcome to Alt Store. Download. Oh yeah, so it says download. Then I guess you do have to install something, but it says no jailbreak required.
Oh, interesting.
So I don't know how that works. Not owning any Apple products.
And I forgot about that court case. That really did get me thinking before, since, they lost that, which means we all won. That will we be able to have like alt stores on like the next PlayStation and Switch and stuff like that?
Yeah, because I guess the rule. I mean, if you look at antitrust laws, you basically can't use a monopoly in one industry to also then tap into a different industry. And that was my understanding, is that iTunes was sort of ruled a monopoly in music distribution. Now, maybe this ruling was specific to the iTunes side of the business, and I'm misinterpreting it. But I know at least on iTunes, they had to start allowing other music distributors because it was considered an antitrust violation. I can see that for like, I think you're right. I can see that for any device, basically saying, you can't limit people to only being able to buy products from the Nintendo store, for example.
Yeah. So that could lead to some pretty cool or pretty annoying things, but having a nice curated like retro game store on a Switch would be, that's not run by Nintendo, might be pretty cool.
Yeah. Now you see the company that owns all the Atari IP, they don't have to worry about this because they are definitely not going to develop their own app store.
Exactly.
They will never run into this problem.
I cannot wait to get to that story.
Yes. Nintendo 3DS emulation is now viable on Android,
and it looks really ugly. If you fast forward to like halfway through this video,
okay, let's see here.
It cuts your phone into like 3 different screens. The top is the top screen in 3DS. The middle is the bottom screen in 3DS, and the bottom is the controller. And it looks so bad. I mean, the graphics look great, but having to use this on-screen controller is just
this is bad. Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of work. Like I admire the work put into this, but there's not a good way to make this a good experience, I don't think, unless you have a tablet, maybe.
If 3DSs and 2DSs are so cheap right now that there's really no reason for this. But impressive nonetheless.
Yes, yeah. Very, very impressive development effort.
Someone is making a game based on Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Oh, wait, hold on. You need to rephrase this. Someone is going to get a takedown letter from Nintendo for making a game based on Super Mario Brothers Super Show.
Now, the guy making this is the same guy that coded the DuckTales remastered and a few other things.
Okay. All right. Well,
But still.
Good. Yeah. Where I'm sure he was hired by companies that had acquired licensing to do those things. So
this animation's terrifying.
Yeah. So yeah. Anyways, I look forward to the takedown letter. Like this.
Yeah, it'll definitely be on this show again.
Yeah. I like the idea. It would be cool. It's sort of a Cuphead style game, is what it looks like to me.
Yeah. For one of the worst cartoons.
If Nintendo wanted to do Super Mario Cuphead that looked like the old cartoon, they could do that. Although they may not have all the rights. Like, it could be one of these things where maybe like that animation, they don't completely own the rights to that. I don't know. But yeah, this isn't going to end well for him.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm excited to see the outcome of this. GoldenEye 64 is getting remade to look truly amazing.
Is this another takedown letter? Or is this a real project?
So it's for GoldenEye 25th anniversary.
Okay. Is this by so I mean, I think is this by like is this the developer or is this a fan game?
Let me get to the stuff I know first.
Okay.
So it's on Unreal Engine. And it seems like something nobody was asking for and we don't need. Here's my guess. So this doesn't come out till 2022. And by that time there will probably be a port on the Switch that has an online mode. And then people stop caring about this.
Okay.
But I can't find who's making this.
Yeah, that's the difference between whether I'm going to invest any energy in the story or not. I think the trailer looks really awesome. I think it looks great. I just want to know if this is going to happen or if this is someone that's about to get sued. So let's see. The YouTube channel that posted it is called Yannick Zerhausen. Finally, we can present you some gameplay footage. For development of GoldenEye 25 on Twitter, I do not own any rights. This project was done merely for fun. All right, well, there you go.
There you go. Yeah, so, yeah, another takedown letter. For my favorite story of the week, the mysterious origins of the uncrackable video game. So, I finally read this article. It's on bbc.com, actually. And it is about the game Entombed for the 2600, and it talks about how this guy just started. He decompiled it, or dumped the ROM or whatever you do with Atari 2600 code, and started digging into how this procedural maze generator works.
Okay,
and you could read into the nitty gritty of it. I mean, it doesn't actually show the algorithm, but he talks about, like halfway down the article, talks about how it picks if you can walk forward, or there's a turn, or there's a wall. And I guess this guy has, looked into a lot of code in his day and never saw anything like this.
Yeah, so it's the code to do... So basically the game procedurally generates mazes, but the mazes it generates are always solvable. Right?
Yes.
That's the important thing. And any small modifications to the code, all the mazes become unsolvable instantly. Right? That's kind of the story with this game.
Yes.
And according to the Wikipedia article, the developer on it, the programmer, is Steven Sidley. And when people talked to him about it, he said he didn't know why it worked. He said it came to him from the algorithm came from another unnamed programmer who was, quote, drunk and whacked out of his brain. And it's listed in the Wikipedia category of list of unsolved problems in computer science.
This is so fascinating. My favorite part about this story is what I want my new job title to be, which is video game archaeologist, which is a person who looks into retro and vintage game code and figures out how it works to see if we can learn anything new. So you could just start calling me video game archaeologist from now on.
That job is much more thankless than you believe it to be. having done that. I did post an article. Oh, by the way, so also in the past week, I did post an article about this, like me attempting to start a project and then realizing, oh, this is going to be so horrible, I can't possibly do this.
Which is?
Okay, so I was looking at this one Falcom game. Dragon Slayer, The Legend of Heroes 2. Not to be confused with the US game called Legend of Heroes 2. They're different games, both called Legend of Heroes 2.
Okay.
And this was a TurboGrafx-16 game, only released in Japan, so I guess technically it's a PC Engine CD game. Never had an English translation, ever. It's the only game in the series, other than Trails of Cold Steel Part 4, to not get an English translation of any kind. There are some that didn't get official English translations and got fan translations. This one did not even have a fan translation yet, which is kind of weird because it's such an old game. So I started looking at the code for this game. You started put through a decompiler and started looking at the ROM data. And in it, there's a huge block of text that is just code from the English translation of Ys 2. Like, just big blocks of text from it. As though, there's some hint, like, we have a CD-ROM, we have all kinds of space. I need to bring in, like, hey, remember in Ys 2 we had this one function that did this cool thing? I'm just going to import that, right? And, hey, I got a compile error. Let me import some more stuff until the compile errors go away. And so the entire game is in Japanese, except for this big block of English text, which is kind of funny because, like, the Japanese version of Ys 1 and 2 doesn't have that text. It's only, I have a whole big write-up on, like, where did this text even come from and so on. And it's not the complete game. It's just, like, a bunch of garbage text that, again, I think got brought in from, like, importing a library. Why they're importing for the English version of the game, I have no idea. No clue why the developers did that. It's a Falcom game. They literally have no developers in America ever. And then I said, okay, you know what? This now looks like a really massive pain, because not only do I have to figure out, like, where the Japanese text is stored, and then how to extract it, and then how to translate it. Not that I would actually translate it. I would run it through a translation program and then just clean up the grammar as best I can.
Yeah.
But I have now contend with the fact that it looks like they just imported a bunch of stuff from other games of theirs that may or may not even be related to the game.
So if you decompile a PC, that's for PC Engine, right?
Yes.
So if you decompile a PC Engine game, do nothing to it, can you recompile it, or is there already stuff you have to do?
Well, the problem is I didn't get to the point where I figured out how to recompile, like, a TurboGrafx ISO image, because I'm pretty sure, like, there's going to be a checksum. When I've done, like, Sega Genesis ROM hacking, a lot of the games have checksums, and then you have to figure out the checksum algorithm and then replace the checksum, right? And almost every single one of them use the exact same checksum algorithm, which is they literally just go through every byte of the ROM. They basically allocate a 32-bit number, because the Sega Genesis is a 16-bit system, but the CPU has 32-bit numbers. They just take a 32-bit number and they just OR every single byte of the thing. It's just one massive, like, OR byte 1, byte 2, byte 3, blah, blah, blah. So at the end, this checksum is just an OR of all the bytes together. So it's not particularly hard to recompute that. I don't know what this game does. Again, because once I started looking at it, I said, this is now, like, a lot harder than I thought it was going to be. I decided I'm not going to do this project.
That's funny. But Entombed.
Yeah.
Have you ever played it?
I have played it now. Yeah.
Apparently it sold pretty well. So that was my favorite article of the week. We do have another downer article next.
Yeah. John Kirby, sometimes called the man who saved Nintendo. Nintendo did name the Kirby character after him. Passed away this week at the age of 79. He was the attorney who helped Nintendo win the lawsuit against Universal Studios over whether or not Donkey Kong was infringing on King Kong. And of course, he discovered that, well, it doesn't matter if Nintendo's infringing on King Kong. King Kong is public domain. Something that Universal Studios themselves had argued in a lawsuit when they were sued by someone else who had made a King Kong movie in the past.
Yeah, and yeah, there was a great part in I listened to the audiobook version of The History of Video Games, and yeah, they spent a long time on this one. And didn't they, like, after they won, didn't they like get a sales ship or something, and they named it Donkey Kong, and like sent Warner Brothers pictures of like the Donkey Kong logo on the back of the ship? Just something like that.
I don't know. I don't remember that, but it seems plausible. But I mean, this is essentially what made like Howard Lincoln and John Kirby like revered. I mean, Howard Lincoln, of course, then they moved on to ultimately be president of Nintendo US, but it solidified these two as being very important people in the history of Nintendo, and in the case of John Kirby, important enough to name a major franchise after him.
Yeah, he just seemed like an all-around good guy too. So sorry to bum everyone out.
Yeah, I vote we do the next two articles last.
Okay, yeah, because so I want to jump ahead to on Ars Technica. They have interview with Sid Meier's himself, the man, the mystery. I love this video. I
unfortunately did not get to read this because I was out. I think this was a late edition. I haven't got around to reading it yet. I apologize.
Yeah, so there's a in-person video interview with him, which I highly recommend watching. Obviously, this will be in the show notes. And the coolest part in the video is they have, apparently there's some retrospective or something happening with Civilization. For some reason, they found the original, I think, 3D6 that he coded Civilization on in the basement, and they brought it up, and the power supply blew. Like, he said it literally blew fire out the back of this desktop case. And so they replaced the power supply and they turned it on, and after they turned it on and it booted up, I forget what happened in there, but apparently if it ever turns off, all the data's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess it's been on for over a year now. And but he loaded up some right on camera some early compiles of Civilization. So you see, like the intro without all the skins on it, and before it went to an artist, and he talks through that, and he talks through how the mistakes and the wins and Railroad Tycoon really helped him make this game, and how the game was almost really different, and how Populous affected it as well. And he just seems like a really genuinely nice guy that you just want to sit down and have a coffee with and just talk to,
Mm-hmm.
And I love almost every Civilization game, so I'm kind of a fan of his. So, yeah. If you haven't had a chance to read this one, definitely go through it.
Hey, next article, one I am familiar with, is guy gets Doom running on a McDonald's cash register, which I was not surprised at because I just assume McDonald's cash registers are actually PCs.
It's running Windows XP.
Yeah. So it's probably more hacking to get past, because I'm sure they're built to be pretty resistant to reboots, meaning it's probably very, very hard to get the thing to do anything other than boot up the cash register software, even if at the end of the day it's just ran XP.
So all he did,
yeah. Here
we go. This is why it's weird that they did a whole article about this, but I guess it's because it's McDonald's that they had to. Mm-hmm. He got a USB splitter so he could plug in a keyboard and mouse. He then hit Control-Alt-Delete and ran Explorer.exe. There was some weird encryption. That was the only part he had to get around. He had to get rid of PCPOS, which is the name of the software running. And, and that's about it.
Yeah.
I wonder if he still has his job at McDonald's.
I I don't know, but if you could figure out how to crack their register system, they should probably move them to home office.
Probably, yeah.
Because I assume they don't want to, because I guess what you would worry about is an employee, like figuring out the busiest day of the year at their location and then cracking the register so that all the money went to a different bank account. Right? Because you figure, I mean, I was thinking like McDonald's at like Mall of America on Black Friday. If you diverted all the cash registers to let's say 2/3 of people pay with credit card everywhere, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, I don't know. What do you think you get? $300,000? I'm guessing. I don't know what a McDonald's at Mall of America makes on Black Friday, but gotta be a mid six figures.
Yeah, that's probably right. And then you just hit the road.
Yeah, you know. You know, they don't catch it for the whole weekend. Maybe, you know, they have kind of reduced staff that weekend, you know. Yeah, you might walk away with a good chunk of money.
All right, on to your favorite articles.
Yep, and that's your free crime idea of the week.
Yes. I don't know if we endorse them, but
yeah, no, it's just something you could do. So there's a bunch of Atari VCS news. One of them is Atari, or the company that owns the rights to the Atari IP, announcing that they're going to have Antstream service on their upcoming system. This is a system that lets you stream classic games that are not owned by a major publisher. Because I've looked at the service before and it seems really cool, and then you look at the game list and you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And as of today, it's only available not in the US. It's a EU only service, which is fine because the holdings company that owns the rights to Atari is a French company. So whatever, they can expand at the US, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm.
Unless they don't have the rights to distribute these games in the US, because distribution deals are regional. I wonder if they're even allowed to. Yeah, I wonder. Now I really wonder if they have the paperwork in place to distribute these games in the US.
I hope they don't check that before they release it. I just want this.
Yeah. Now,
this train to crash.
To be pretty blunt, the games available in the system are pretty much garbage. I'll just cut to the chase. I don't see much on this games list that I'm interested in paying $9 a month to play.
That's
it's like,
the
okay,
thing.
they have all the color. They have the Codemasters games. Oh boy.
Yeah.
Have you ever heard of Bargain Basement for the Spectrum?
I bet you could play it on archive.org for free.
I bet. Or the arcade version of Bloody Wolf. I didn't know that existed. CJ Elephant Antics for the Commodore 64.
That's a system seller right there.
Yeah, there you go, man. Gladiator 1984 in the arcade. I'm just reading random games in the list that have funny names. Horace Goes Skiing. These are actual games on the service that will be coming to the alleged Atari system. Now, I know you're a backer of the system. What do you think about these games?
I just can't wait to have a $389.99 Atari VCS to play games that you have to spend $9 a month for that you don't even want. So that was their big announcement right there.
Yes. So there you go. $9.99 a month US or $7.99 a month. There you go.
They haven't announced, to my knowledge, any real games that are going to be on it. They said there were going to be a lot of platform exclusives and stuff like that.
Well, Horace Goes Skiing is not on any other platform. You can't get that on Switch. You can't get that on PlayStation 4.
You know, we should code Horace Goes Skiing 2.
Okay.
And see if we get a takedown letter. See if anyone
Is
tries to
Horus...
take it down.
okay, there is something called Horus. It's a series written in the 1980s by William Tang for Beam Software. Has Hungry Horus, Horus Goes Skiing, and Horus in the Spiders. And the first one, it looks like kind of a Pac-Man Berserk clone. Another one is a little bit of a Frogger clone. And the other one is... I don't know what that is. I mean, look, I get it. Like, it probably wasn't easy to develop. I'm sure they're very, very tough games to have built back in the day.
But
I just don't know who's paying $9.99 a month for these games.
So if you go to ourdigitalheritage.org and you search for it, right there's a button, play Horus Goes Skiing at the internetarchive.org. And there, I'm playing it.
Okay.
So I didn't have to spend the $9.99. I did back the Atari VCS. So, yeah.
There you go. Enjoy that one.
I'm gonna make that my game of the week one time.
Well, I'm not playing. I may not play it. If the Winter Olympics are next year. No Winter Olympics next year.
Summer
Olympics next year. Yeah. And then the follow-up to it is Atari VCS architect quits project, claims he hasn't been paid for 6 months.
Yeah.
So I guess that would be a problem. It would be a problem if the hardware was 100% finished, right?
Well,
I'm not paying the guy's a problem because he may get sued eventually.
I mean, there's got to be bugs still in it, and if for some reason they made their own operating system, when that has bugs, they're probably going to need to talk to this guy, and he's probably not going to answer his phone.
No, they didn't make an operating system. Didn't they also announce that they aren't having an operating system? Wasn't that the last thing we talked about?
I thought it was some like Android alternative.
My understanding is that they were like able to get Ubuntu to boot on it, maybe.
Let's see.
So in this article,
you're right.
About the Art's quitting, that he is never paid. I believe that also mentions that there was no operating system.
Yep, it is Ubuntu based, called Atari World. That's
yes.
on Wikipedia.
Yes, which means I took the Ubuntu distribution and I replaced the splash screen.
That's about it. It's SteamOS at that point.
Right.
It's less than SteamOS.
Now, Steam abandoned SteamOS. Right. Or the Steam box or whatever that idea was they had. And they're a much more competent company than the holdings company that has the Atari IP right now.
Yeah.
So, I mean, this is just I think they got their Kickstarter money. I think, whoever's in charge, there's either like delusional or a con artist. And I'm really not sure which one it is right now.
I mean, they took something that should have been so straightforward. They could have had a system on a chip, like Raspberry Pi, probably a little bit more powerful type of device. Had all the old Atari stuff on there. Built this cool controller. Just put your money into the controller. Just be totally honest about using Ubuntu, whatever. And maybe have, some video game rental service on it. They could have done something like that they're not trying to wow people with. It's just some alternative, something that's easy to hack and put more retro games on, just like every other mini classic system out there. They could have done that and people would have been fine with it. But this IP company can do nothing right.
How much was like the Ouya bought for when some company bought them out?
Oh, way too. You mean before they bought them out and then went
before they bought them out? Yeah. I think it was Razer that bought them out. Like, however much money Razer bought them out for, that could have been what you did the VCS, the Atari VCS for. Like, you could have just bought something else like the Ouya and put Atari on it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and people would have been fine with it.
Right, because they've already developed the storefront. They've already, again, not a huge success. I think they sold, 1 million units or whatever, which seems like a pretty good, I haven't sold 1 million units of a console yet. So it seems pretty impressive to me.
I'm trying to find how much they paid for it, but
yeah, it was the problem.
People don't like my ad blocker.
Yeah, the problem is like if it's two private companies, you're never going to find out because neither of them have to release what the price was.
Yeah, well, Alibaba put $10 million into Ouya earlier that year, which was 2015. So they probably paid a lot if Alibaba was behind it. But yeah, good going, Atari.
Well, so there, if 10 million of Alibaba money couldn't get the Ouya to be more successful, what again did this Atari alleged console raise? It was a number less than 10 million.
Yeah. Let's see. Just over 3 million.
Okay, yeah. They don't stand a chance.
No, they only had 11,000 backers. So, yikes.
All right. So, topic of the episode is one you suggested, BSNES-HD, which is actually, where's it, BSNES-HD?
So we reported it on the BSNES-HD, which was the mod for the emulator BSNES that allowed you to upscale and up-res any SNES game that used Mode 7. And so we decided it'd be kind of fun to try this out and with a lot of games and kind of see how it looked and how it worked. And why don't we have you go through your games, because you didn't do as many as me?
Yeah, no, because I spent a whole bunch of time trying to just get it working.
Yeah.
This is not like, it's a good emulator. I think it's a really great emulator. I will start by saying that. But it takes a little bit of work to get it going. You can either download, if you're running Linux especially, like everything with Linux is a hassle. But you can download like the Linux package and then, install it and run it yourself. Or you can get the RetroArch one and boot it off there. But then the RetroArch one, I ran into some issues like it didn't detect joypads real easily and a few other things that I was just having issues getting it configured. But once I got past that, I was really impressed just overall with the quality of emulation on it.
Yep.
I do prefer, what's the thing on the Ouya, but that's because it's like no work. But it's not as good. I mean, I'll admit it's not quite as good quality and doesn't have as many features and options. And yeah, the big thing this does is it does like upscaling. It improves improves how Super Nintendo games look on modern hardware. And of course, that means the first thing I tried was Hong Kong 97 because that's the way my brain works. I just think, I wonder what the worst game looks like. And I would actually say Hong Kong 97 actually looks worse in high res than it does normally. I think
how did it look?
Well, I mean, it looks terrible to begin with. It's hard to describe how it looks. I mean, it just looks like a terrible game, but bigger. Then I tried Flashback, which I, again, can't really make it past, the first 10 minutes. But I knew it had like that really impressive intro scene. I guess I should have done out of this world too. I thought, I mean, it's hard. I don't know good words to describe like graphics and stuff, but I thought the intro scene, there was a noticeable improvement. I thought, in that it didn't look blurry. Like sometimes when if you just take a Super Nintendo game and just expand it to full screen, the ratio looks messed up and it kind of has a blurry feel. Like this looked really sharp still, I thought.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a pretty good one. I thought that turned out pretty good. And then fired up Doom, and I have to play. I should have played it on the console at the same time. I think Doom actually was slower on this, and this is the only game that had some slowdown, and I didn't try tweaking it too much. It looked pretty good, like having full screen Doom on Super Nintendo. Yeah, look, it looks all right. I don't know if it looked really better, but
Hmm.
it may have been a little bit slower. I have to go back and I just really didn't do a good comparison to the original though. I have the original. I mean, I could just very easily fire up Doom on the Super Nintendo
Nice.
through the component cables and compare the two. That's the thing is I paid for the overpriced component cables for Super Nintendo, so that's why if I want to play a game upscaled, that's typically the route I'm going to go. But of course, that doesn't help with like
Hmm.
Mode 7 and some of the other stuff that BSNES HD does.
Yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, I'm not surprised Doom was slower. I mean, that's a lot of surfaces it has to. I mean, would you disagree with this? It mostly fixed background surfaces.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, Flashback. I think that's I kind of do. I have to do before and after on some of these, but um, I thought like the colors on the background of Flashback looked better.
Hmm. Hmm.
I thought it doesn't change the color palette. I just think like it looked they were I don't know clearer for lack of a better term. I'm not good at coming up with terms for this kind of stuff.
um, well, when I had this idea to do this, my buddy was over and I was messing with this in RetroArch, and I couldn't tell a difference. And then I
Okay.
literally loaded up, another SNES emulator, and it looked the same. And so I don't know what I was doing wrong in RetroArch, but the second I just pulled up the standalone emulator, world of difference. I started with F Zero, and it just looked incredible. I did 2x resolution and 8x scaling, and it looked great. HyperZone was one of the most impressive ones. Uh, it did slow down, but I was able to get 3x resolution, 8x scaling, and it worked fine. And wow, that game really popped.
Mhm.
Um, Street Racer, which I didn't play much, uh, it was so crystal clear. What I would do is play it with all the features enabled, and then disable them, and kind of go back and forth a few times. Uh, it seems like the Street Racer and the Mario Karts of the world. This is what it's really made for. Um,
Mhm.
Run Saber. I didn't make it that far. I didn't see a difference. R-Type 3 looked great. Wolfenstein was a strange one. It really slowed down. So I toned it down, scaled it down a bit, and I'm not sure if I like the effect. Like you, I can't really describe what I didn't like about it, but I think I liked it without the effect better. Um, then I decided to try NHL Stanley Cup. Worked great. Um, it made it look like a 32x game.
Okay. Is that a
It really
compliment?
did.
I mean, I
I
like
think
32x.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, I think so because the backgrounds look crystal clear. Like you were playing on a 46 or something like that. But the foreground, the sprites were still 16-bit ish, if you know what I mean. And that's really what a lot of 32x games did, you know, um, because it would use, the Genesis core to do a lot of the sprite stuff and use the 32x to do the rest, or vice versa, depending on the coding of the game. And because that's how it worked, right? It kind of overlaid the two sometimes. Or at
All
least
right.
that's a way you could code 32x stuff. Um, so that's what Stanley Cup looked like. Mech Warrior, huge difference. The ground and the water looked great. It played great. One cool thing about this emulator is I don't know if you would call it overscan, but it would allow you, if you had a 6x9 screen like I was playing on, it would play the real game in 4x3, but it would still show you what was past that. And with Mech Warrior, stuff like that actually made a really cool difference.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, my thoughts about it is it really 32x'd the SNES, and I couldn't sort out what was going on with RetroArch, but I guess also, it's not... What I learned in this experiment is I don't want to do this. I want to play the actual game. You know, I like remakes of games. I like reimaginings of games. I could maybe see, like, let's say they never made another F Zero, and you're the biggest F Zero fan in the world. You might like this new take on it. You know what I mean? But that's really all I got out of it. But I'd like to see stuff like this for other systems, but I don't know if it's possible because they don't really have this chipset, you know?
Yeah.
But you have any closing thoughts on it other than how much you love
I was
Hong
actually
Kong
I was more
97?
I was actually more thinking about, like, why isn't there a hockey game on 32X? That's the problem. Is you sent me into a mental rabbit hole of, I mean, there's a football game. I mean, it's not like a major franchise. It's a quarterback club, right?
You got NBA Jam, so you got a great basketball game.
Jam, you have World Series baseball, but you don't have a hockey game. And that's why it didn't succeed in Canada, is my guess.
Well, have you played NHL Stanley Cup?
No, I've really only played the NHL one that's on Sega CD. It's 94.
That's a good game.
Yeah.
NHL Stanley Cup is a very, 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 very bad game.
I mean, not counting Nintendo Ice Hockey, of course, is the one I played the most.
I love that game. I used to be like preternatural at that game.
Mm-hmm. But it's like NBA Jam. It's not a realistic representation of the game.
Exactly, yeah. But NHL Stanley Cup tries to show off Mode 7, and it just isn't fun. It's just a gimmick. Sorry to NHL Stanley Cup fans out there.
Yeah, there aren't any. But yeah, I would say, like, I would kind of recommend this if you were doing if you want to play Super Nintendo games on a high def monitor and don't want to buy extra cables. Like, I think it actually does a decent job with scaling.
Yeah, and I was on a really powerful system, so I could really, I wasn't on a Raspberry Pi 3,
Yeah.
And so I got to really crank this up and see the effect of it. Like, F Zero on a pretty decent sized monitor with this upscaling is really impressive. It almost looks like a modern game. Again, the sprites don't, but everything around it does.
All right, you want to talk about our game club games?
Yeah, so I picked Haunting, starring PolterGuy, and it's an EA game back from 1993 for the Genesis. And apparently there is a PSP version, but I didn't know that until today.
Yes. It's on a collection called EA Replay, which is honestly like a really amazing collection of games. I don't know how this hasn't been published for newer systems, but it's a mix of console and PC. Well, it's console and PC games, except it's really not PC games. It's the console ports of PC games. So it's all Genesis and Super Nintendo games. So, like, there's a game on there called Ultima 7 The Black Gate. That's the Super Nintendo port of Ultima 7. It's not the PC version. So it's a, smaller game. Same with, like, Wing Commander is the Super Nintendo Wing Commander, and Syndicate is the Super Nintendo Wing Commander.
Okay.
But it's there's not really, other than maybe, like, I'm not a big fan of Budokan, for example. Outside of that, there's really, like, no filler content. It's got, like, the Strike series, all 3 Road Rash, the games I mentioned before, and then, of course, Mutant League Football and Haunting, starring PolterGuy.
Well, it sounds like a great pickup for PSP.
Yeah.
Yeah, wow, that would be great for the Switch or something. But anyway, PolterGuy. So you play as PolterGuy. You were a rebellious punk teenager that was killed in a skateboarding accident because your skateboard was defective. And it was manufactured by the business mogul Vito Sardini. And so because you were so angsty in life, in death you were as well as a ghost. And so you haunt Vito's family. And the objective is to scare them so much that they move homes. And you follow them into 4 different homes. And so you're this ghost flying around, and kind of a demon ghost, and they can't see you. And little red or green or blue icons pop up that show you could jump into that object. So like you can make, a clock do something scary, or a chair spin, or the floor bleed, and it scares people around you, and they have like a little scare meter. And then once they run out of the room, there's ectoplasm that you can pick up, and that's kind of like your life juice, I guess.
Yeah.
Their dog is the only thing that could see you, and if it barks at you, some of your life goes away. And then there's Ecto Beast that can kind of attack you, but you can hide from in objects and stuff like that. And then you eventually get, every once in a while sucked down to, I don't know if that's hell or what, but
yeah, it's when you run it when your ectoplasm meter runs out, you get sucked down to hell or whatever to collect more ectoplasm.
Yeah, and
this part of the game to me was the bad part.
Yes, yes. So, there was a lot of impressive programming in this. There was a lot of great ideas, a lot of funny moments. The gameplay, I didn't like how he moved around.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't that intuitive to me. And also when you're in, the underworld or whatever, for me, it was hard to tell what you were or when you have to pick up ectoplasm, what you're actually connecting with really didn't, I guess connect with me. There was a 2-player mode, but I have no friends.
All right. Fair enough.
But, I think it's fun to dive into this time of year. I'll definitely pick it up every once in a while. I think it was met with pretty warm reception when it was released.
Mm-hmm.
But this is the first time I played it. I never played it back in the day. I always heard about it, and I think a buddy or two had it, but maybe I did borrow it, but I just don't remember playing it. But that's really my thoughts on this one. I know you were pretty familiar with it.
Yeah, I played it a couple times. The funny thing is the timing's interesting because there's a little bit of an Untitled Goose Game feel to it. In that the point of the game is to annoy people using the environment.
Yeah, that is a very, very good comparison. This game's definitely longer than Untitled Goose Game.
It's longer, but part of it is because, like, to scare the people out of the house, you have to scare them into a room that has an exit. And sometimes they just won't go into a room that has an exit. And you get stuck, like, chasing them back and forth between a couple of rooms. And then you run out of ectoplasm, and you have to do the gauntlet through hell or whatever's going on there. That's where the controls get bad. Because that's a more action sequence. And the part where you're just trying to scare the family members, the controls don't really matter.
Yeah, moving him around is like almost moving around a giant mouse cursor without a mouse.
Yeah, kind of, yeah. Yeah, so it's like overall I like the game. I like the graphics. I like the idea of the game. It's not a perfect game, but it is kind of a fun thing to play a little bit around this time of year.
Yeah, absolutely. I would definitely recommend it, and I think it'll hit home for some people and it won't for others. But check it out if you've never checked it out. But yeah, that's really all my thoughts on that one. What was your game?
That's a good question. What was it? Oh, Monster in My Pocket. So this was a listener recommendation. And this is a platforming game based, again, on this toy series that I just really wasn't familiar with. Probably because, when it came out, I wasn't in the small toy phase. And it's a game that sort of reminded me a little bit of aesthetically of Chippendale's Rescue Rangers, because you're small characters moving in an environment where everything else is big. So you're running through a kitchen and like the plates are all huge, that kind of stuff. And you get that aesthetic in Rescue Rangers. I think Rescue Rangers is a better platformer, but so this you either play as Dracula or Frankenstein. I don't believe it uses either of their names, probably because the descendants of the authors of those might sue. I don't know. I don't really notice a big play difference between the two characters, so I think it's just a matter of preference. And as you're running through levels, you're fighting off other characters other monsters that I assume are based on the toy line. And then there's a boss fight at the end. And you can sometimes pick up objects and throw them, but there's not really a lot of objects to interact with. What I noticed is the levels are really long. Did you try this?
Yeah, oh yeah. I actually really like the graphics in this game.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think it's in, if you were to make like different tiers of Nintendo graphics, it's in the highest or second highest tier. It's graphically a very, very nice looking game.
And I thought, play control is tight. I played as Frankenstein. I actually, me and Randy from the last episode actually played it after we did the interview, and we were just laughing because he was just so impressed, and all these characters, he's like, I have all these monsters in my pockets. These look really good, really, really like the original. So I thought that was pretty neat.
These levels seem linear, but you can actually, sometimes there's like two paths through them. Like you can stay on the ground or you can go up high. That makes sense. To get through they all exit in the same place at the end. But you can take one of two different routes through it. And the boss fights weren't too tough. I got a couple stages in. I didn't finish the game. I was just looking, and like a complete run of the game is only about 35 minutes. So I guess I probably got further in the game than I thought I did. So like overall, really, really nice looking Nintendo game. Maybe not one I would play a lot, except outside of Halloween time, because I just think there's better platformers. Like I would rather play Chip and Dale or, of course, the Mario games over this.
Yeah, but I really enjoyed this one. I definitely, this gets in my recommend list, I guess, if we're rating our Game Club games.
Right. We don't have an official rating system, but I would say,
I guess it's how much we complain about it.
Yeah, I would say like definitely 100% worth trying. Maybe not worth getting a copy off eBay for whatever it goes for.
And we should mention this is Konami.
Well, yeah, but you'll know that because Konami put their logo like all over the screen on the game.
I know. Does the Konami code work in this one?
I did not try it.
I didn't try it. Yeah.
No. It's like, you're listening to, like, if you don't know whether or not you're listening to a Black Eyed Peas song, just listen for a few seconds. Eventually they'll tell you. Right? Monster in My Pocket and Konami has kind of the same thing going on there.
Yeah.
The cheapest loose copy of this game is like $30 right now. So I guess it's a somewhat rare game.
Yeah, 92, so fairly late,
I guess it came with a free monster in the pocket as well, because eBay collections that have the monster seem to go for a lot more than ones that don't.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm looking in Wikipedia here, and I don't see that, but that's got to be a thing.
Well, or maybe someone's just including the figure. I don't know. It looked like it was part of the packaging. Let me see. Monster in My Pocket NES. Complete. Let's look at the box here. Free. Exclusive monster inside.
Oh, man. Now I need it.
Yeah.
Apparently in Asia, this was released as Batman and Flash, and it was just a ROM hack.
All right.
Which I could see this being all games in Asia.
Yeah, there's a lot of ROM hacking possibility for this game in terms of swapping out the characters. Or keeping the characters in and making the backgrounds, like a Castlevania setting instead of someone's house.
Yeah, actually, that's a really good idea. Any closing thoughts on it?
No, like I said, I think it's worth trying, and I don't know what the loose exclusive figure goes for, but I'm sure it's maybe more than the game itself at this point, because I'm sure those all got thrown out.
Yeah.
Do you want to tease next episode's games and how to contact us before we do listener feedback?
Absolutely. So, mine is Ghost Trick on the Nintendo DS. So not a common game, I don't think.
Yeah, I don't know if I've heard of it. I'm going to go with Ghostbusters. Basically, any version you want to play of Ghostbusters. Of the original Ghostbusters game. So the one that was like on Master System and I assume C64 and Sega Master System, which is probably the one I'm going to play. The Sega Genesis game is a completely different game that has the same title, so I know that makes it confusing. But I'm going with the original one where you're the David Crane one, where you're driving the car and trapping the ghosts and buying items, and you have the city map, that one. Not Ghostbusters on Nintendo Wii. That's a different game
which
also.
was recently just released on Switch.
Yeah, I tried that game. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
It's very disappointing because like Ghostbusters on Wii, you think, oh, this is going to be great, right? Because you can do the ecto beam thing, or whatever it's called.
Exactly. The Wii controller was made for that.
Yeah, and they barely use it, and the controls are awful. And it's a lot of story. Not a good game. Sorry. Genesis 1, again, completely different. It's like got the kind of super deformed head look going, and it's an action platforming kind of game, and it's perfectly fun, but that's not the one I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm excited for that game. But if any of you play any of our Game Club games, please email us, talk to us about them. Email at retrogameclub.net. That is email at retrogameclub.net. It doesn't have to be just last episode. You could go back to episode 1 and play that game and email us about it. And we're excited to hear from you. And also, Zach, who runs our Facebook, thank you, Zach, has been asking some questions for the episode. So his 2 Facebook questions this time was, what was your favorite horror-themed retro game? And name a horror movie you think would be successfully converted to or from a classic game. And we got a few emails this time.
I think even some answering, feedback on previous games too. So I'll do the first one. There's a few here. Okay. 1, 2, I'm sorry, I'm looking through the list. First one from Majors, talking about my former boss that claimed that he played for the New England Patriots. He mentions a Twitch streamer called Dr. Disrespect, who I think I have heard of, who jokingly uses the title of being the Blockbuster video game champion for 93-94. Only that he believes that is actually intentionally fake versus, my one-time boss. Link's Awakening, feedback about it being too hard, which I think I commented it would be too hard for people who just grew up on Breath of the Wild. He said, yeah, but, on the flip side, at least it's, keeping the original old school feel, which I understand. And about taking 20 years to beat Secret of Mana, he said it took him 20 years to beat Phantasy Star 4, which hopefully that was an all-one save game, because otherwise you'd forget what's going on. Thought it was funny that we opened saying we were not going to talk about the Billy Mitchell Twin Galaxies drama, and then we did. No, that was lack of self-control on our part. I'd like to continue not talking about that, really.
It's kind of like the Atari VCS with us.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I don't know, man. It's like if you got, some kind of painful spot on your body and you just keep flicking at it, Like, man, every time I bend this finger, it really hurts, and you just keep doing it.
Yeah.
It's like that. What else? Game preservation versus bootlegging, and what is the difference between the two? And, some people, he says, obviously abuse the phrase game preservation to just bootleg tons of games. And that, if you're a console supporter, at least he tries to, and I think encourages other people to try and get original copies of game when you can, which I agree with. Also, we found it ironic that you love the Neo Geo but are trying to sell it.
Yeah, that's a thing happening.
Yeah.
Just don't have room.
I forgot about the new Goland. What was that? Or Golan? Golang.
Oh no, here's you got a typo here.
Golang,
the Go programming language. He's saying that I asked if people like when we talk about stuff like Go programming and stuff like that. Like we just mentioned it He's pretty much saying you do you.
Okay, I can buy that. Street Fighter 2 cheating. Well, he agrees the computer player abuses the control system. You think players can learn tricks to counter it, which obviously I have to agree with because otherwise people would never win it. He knows that there are some charging glitches in Street Fighter that human players can abuse. But if you want to know a game that really cheats, you need to play against Rugal from King of Fighters. And related to that, there apparently is a Google search for SNK boss syndrome that turns up a bunch of stuff. Which,
I'm so going to Google that.
Early 3D games that predate Wolfenstein 3D. Hold on, I gotta Google this game because I've not heard of the one he's mentioned here. Yeah, a game called Weebarm or Wibarm. This is really obscure. This is a 1986 PC-88 game that was later ported to DOS. That is you're moving around in like a real, albeit kind of slow and blocky 3D environment.
Really impressive.
Yeah, I've never heard of this, and it looks great. It must have been a very limited release outside of Japan.
It has like a Thexter vibe too, I feel.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then Game Club Games. Parappa was really fresh and different when it came out. And he happened to capitalize on coming out near the same time that DDR was coming out, which I agree. And Uniracer, unfortunately, he has to reserve to the preservation, in quotes, model to get this game. Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of us have had to preserve Uniracer. Yes.
Yes. Well,
I like that. We can just use that term for whenever someone illegal copies a game. Like, this guy's not...
I'm preserving it.
Yeah, this guy's not, ripping off Nintendo's Mario Brothers. He's preserving it.
Well, thank you, Majors, for that email. And Eric writes us. We had a few questions we had posted about from a few episodes. So he's talking about the TurboGrafx CD. He saw first time he saw it was at Software Etc. in the mid-90s. And it was Splatterhouse that really caught his eye, really because of the cover. But the first time he ever played it was in 2010 or 2011 at the Portland Retro Game Expo. And he really likes some bullet hell shmups and would like our take on some of our must-plays. And what I could really say on that is Ikaruga, Radiant Silver Sun, Mars Matrix. And if you want like a new, cheaper game that's always on like a Steam sale, Enter the Gungeon is fantastic.
Hold on one second. I'm going to throw in the... this is a kind of personal one, like the Lords of Thunder game. There's Lords of Thunder, Gate of Thunder. They're not really connected. Because even if you don't like them, they at least have really awesome soundtracks.
Yeah, and I kind of think everyone likes those games.
Yeah. I'm completely awful at both of them.
Yeah. I'm one of those people that will watch like a bullet hell complete walkthrough on YouTube and think I could just go and load up that game and be that good. And I die right away. I'm horrible at them. But I really do love Mars Matrix out of that list. It's probably one of my favorites. But he also says, one of our questions was, what retro game would you like to see remade on modern consoles? And he says anything by Apogee ID or id. I'm sorry. It's been a long day. Stuff like Commander Keen, console-wise, maybe Spider-Man Maximum Carnage or Sunset Riders, which that would be really cool remade. Favorite horror theme retro game? He loves Resident Evil 3, Silent Hill 1. The Aliens first-person shooters on PS1 were also really creepy. Parasite Eve or D, which I've never played. And he asked if we played Phantasm Goria. That's a real throwback.
Yeah, it is, and it's that's definitely like an R-rated
Sierra
game.
Online. Yeah, and eventually I do want to do that one. One of those in the series for Game Club.
Yeah, I mean, if you want, I don't know if you can play this anywhere, But there were 2 games for Windows 95 called Shivers 1 and Shivers 2. And they're sort of like light versions of Seventh Guest style game, where they're dark and they're horror game, but they're not like as dark as Seventh Guest. But it's the same kind of idea. Like you're in a haunted museum and you have to solve puzzles to get out. And I don't think those have really been ported to anything, but those are just amazingly good horror games.
You said they're called Shivers?
Shivers, and there's 2 of them. And they were Windows 95. Maybe they're on Steam or something. I guess if I knew we were going to talk about this, I would have been smart to look it up. The sequel, the second game, came out in 1997, so it's even before Windows 98. They were Sierra games, just like Phantasmagoria, I guess. I think the first one was probably actually in 1995. I'm seeing who worked on it here. Yeah, Roberta Williams was a writer for the first game, but not the second one.
Mm-hmm.
So not like producer, but like, or developer or ours, but writer. Like actually worked on the script for it. And yeah, it's basically just Seventh Guest style game, but point and click adventure. I don't think there's any way to die in them. If there is, it's pretty hard. Like I didn't find any of the puzzles to be like super difficult. But I thought it was. I enjoyed them a lot, and unfortunately, I doubt you can actually. Maybe Good Old Games has them. I don't know. Wait, Shivers on Good Old Games. Here it is. Good Old Games does have them.
How much is it?
$6.
That's not bad at all. Yeah, there's a Phantasmagoria. It comes with like a Sierra Online pack in Steam, and it's so cheap. You could get them all for a few dollars.
Yep, and it is less than a third of the download size of Namco Arcade.
Maybe even less than that.
Well, 372 meg. So
yeah, 1.3 gig.
So that's 4. Yeah, so it's basically 1/4 the size.
But you just answered his next question: is can you think of any other retro horror games for PC besides Alone in the Dark and I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream?
Yeah, so the other one I like, the games I like a lot, and I was actually just thinking I need to get these on. I need to get Seventh Guest on my phone because I know that's on Android. Seventh Guest and Android, Seventh Guest and 11th Hour. So 11th Hour is like a direct sequel to Seventh Guest, and those are I'm in a haunted mansion and I have to solve puzzles to get out, and there's this mad toy maker's ghost that's gonna like torture me for all eternity if I don't figure out how to get out, that kind of stuff. Typical, your typical Halloween night. And yeah, the setting's great. They both have really, really corny 90s FMV. Right? So you get that part going. Corny, awful 90s FMV, if you can get past that. But if you're listening to the show, you probably enjoy corny Windows FMV, right? You have to.
Yeah. It's a product of its time. I mean, what else are you going to do with CD-ROMs?
Yeah, and they're cheap. So
you need to use that space.
So right now, the Seventh Guest Remastered is $3.99 on the Android store.
There you go.
And it was a $50 game when it came out.
And yeah, I know it's on PS4 and Steam as well. If you don't want it on, or if you don't have Android.
And it is a 30 meg download. Which is shocking because it was a CD-ROM game with tons of FMV. So they must have really compressed the what out of this to get it down to that.
Well, back then they didn't really have compression. You know what I mean? It was just straight MPEG.
Take it back. It says game requires 2 gig of free storage space on your device.
Oh, the downloader is 30 meg.
Oh yeah, there you go. And it's the whole thing. Oh, this is interesting. So you read the whole entry here. It's running on Scum VM. Oh, interesting. So if you own Seventh Guest, you might just be able to put Scum VM on your phone and play this.
Very interesting.
It is interesting. I wonder. But they also say they added a bunch of stuff. I mean, they said they added a making of feature. They added some deleted scenes, extra soundtrack, things that weren't included on their separate download. You can copy the soundtrack to your phone as a regular like music thing if you want to listen to it. And then they upgraded the touch model so that it's easier on a phone. So it's probably worth paying the $3.99. It will cost more than $3.99 of your time to figure out how to make it work in ScumVM.
Yes. Well, thank you for that email, Eric. And Zach writes us a quick one just about how we were talking about Link's remaking, slowing down.
Mm-hmm.
He sent us an article about it and how he hasn't played it in dock mode, but you haven't either because
I cannot play in dock mode if I wanted to.
Yes,
but again, I don't know if the hardware makes a difference. That's really where I'm stuck at here. I think maybe. Well, let me look at this. Is there a video that shows a side-by-side comparison?
There's two things going on. So in the standard Switch, if you play undocked, it does throttle the processor a little bit. I don't know if it throttles the processor or the GPU or both, and you're not in as high as res, and the Switch Lite has a more efficient processor.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I think it plays in the mode that the original Switch does, but undocked.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking at the video where they're showing examples, and I know I'm not seeing it. The other thing I noticed is I complained about the Switch Lite having bad battery life. The battery life is radically different for games that are not Link's Awakening. So,
better?
Well, better, yeah. Like Link's Awakening has about a 2.5 to 3 hour battery life tops, whereas other games are at least 4 hours.
So this is really maxing out the system.
Yeah, which is crazy because it's a game that came out in like 1993, 92. Wait, 92, right? The point is, it's a remake of a 20-something-year-old game. I get that they're doing some crazy like claymation effects and it looks awesome. But yeah, it's clearly like chewing up the CPU or something. It's doing something that's making it a lot slower or making it shoot the battery a lot faster than other games.
Yeah. Huh. I think we got one.
Do you want to do this one here? From Joe. So Joe really enjoyed the feature that we had about toys and video games. There's a lot of things we can, he suggests as a crossover item, the NES Batman figure, which I've not seen before.
You got to look at this thing. It is so strange.
A toy based on a video game on a movie that's based on a comic book. Okay.
It's one of the worst figures I've ever seen. The box is really cool.
Oh, because it's Batman, but in the palette of Batman on Super Nintendo. Or NES, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it looks all right. That was a really nice looking Nintendo game, by the way.
Yeah, that'll be a Game Club game sometime.
He says he would have loved to see toys based on Captain N, the Game Master.
Yes.
Seems like kind of a no-brainer. And it would include things like Mega Man and Simon Belmont, etc. As for some past Game Club games, Burger Time, he played the television version while volunteering at a convention. He said it's a really good port of the arcade game, and he liked having to tell people to press the egg on the overlay to start the game. Yeah, I played it without the overlay last time, but yeah, the overlay has all the characters on it. He played Alien Crush a few months ago, and it was pretty good for a pinball game. Wolfenstein 3D, of course, is a classic that he first saw on a demo PC at Radio Shack. Man, Wolfenstein 3D on Radio Shack is a very early 90s reference. It's very hard to go back after playing Doom, though. Again, because of the kind of confusing layout of the levels. And then Uniracers was fun for a couple minutes. And he remembers Parappa being a very iconic game, which I guess it is, as characters go. And he saw PolterGuy back in the day and thinking it was a fun idea. But in retrospect, it isn't really that much fun.
Kind of my take, too.
Yeah, he says he doesn't remember the monster in my pocket, being a phenomenon or even a thing that existed back then. But it seems that Konami's made a decent enough game, although he would have liked it if there were more playable characters, since there were hundreds and hundreds of monsters to choose from.
Yeah, like why were those two monsters the only two good ones?
Yeah, now see, a Smash Brothers style monster in my pocket would make a lot more sense.
That would be great. As long as they don't ever do the Muscle NES game as Monster in My Pocket.
Yeah, you have to do a crossover.
One of the worst
Muscle
games.
versus Monster in My Pocket. All right.
Just on a different game engine.
So thank you to everyone who wrote in. If people want to write about one of our games, how do they do that again?
Email at retrogameclub.net. We really don't read Facebook stuff on here just because the two of us aren't on there too much. So please email us. Email at retrogameclub.net. We love hearing from you guys. Any of your, retro adventures or games you've played, suggestions for the show. If you've ever ripped off a McDonald's, or if Atari hasn't paid you. We'd like to hear about all that.
Yes, especially if you've never been paid by Atari.
Yes. I think that's a wrap, right?
Yeah, I think so. So thanks for listening.